I had to stop watching people and connect with philosophical texts because they were teaching me how to go against that reactionary nature. And if I continued to watch people, I would fall, say, victim to their habits and their reactions.
The big question is this: how do we take a seemingly ordinary world and make it beyond extraordinary? In yoga, there is so much more than meets the eye, and it's not just the things we do on our yoga mats that make the biggest difference. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name is Austin Bitsis, and welcome to Life as a Secret Yogi. Today's guest is Nicholas Carey, aka the Veteran Yogi, who most call Nicky Namaste, who is freshly back from his epic motorcycle road trip that pretty much lasted the whole month of September. So, Nicky, welcome to the Life as a Secret Yogi show as we hear your life as a secret yogi.
Welcome. Thanks for having me for sure. And I'm excited to be here and share with all of you uh, everything I've learned and well, maybe not everything. I don't think we have time for that, but definitely looking forward to talking about the trip for sure.
Cool. Awesome. And yeah, I'm super grateful for your time. And usually I introduce a little bit about the guest at this point in the show, but I feel I won't really do you justice. So I'll let you in. But before we dive really in, a little bit about the audience of the show. So our audience are those that want to take the practice of yoga, meditation, breath work, energy work, animal assisted therapy, among other related tools, into the real world. It's a lot of people who are looking to perform at a higher level in other disciplines, such as running, golf, surfing, weightlifting, freediving, basketball, art, music, entrepreneurship, and so on, or just simply those who want to make life beautiful and just live a beautiful life. The audience does not necessarily have a desire to become the stereotypical yogi or yoga teacher. Nevertheless, the audience would like to utilize these tools of yoga, meditation, and the other related practices to make life beautiful. And in short, this message of the secret yogi is that we all have this heroic self, our inner source that we cultivate through these tools, the tools of yoga, meditation, breath work, animal assisted therapy, and related practices, to make a seemingly ordinary world extraordinary. It's that we all have this superhero that lives within. And these tools and similar practices of yoga, meditation, and breath work allow us to tap into our quote superpowers, our superpowers being mindfulness, awareness, love, focus, creating happiness from within, to just list a few, and ultimately just feel good in a body that we love. So we really hope this episode unlocks your own superpowers for everyone listening right now through yoga and these other related practices that we talk about. And if you like it, make sure to share it with at least one person that needs it most. And please consider leaving a written review and rating wherever you're listening to right now. So, Nicky, welcome to the show. I'm super grateful to have you on the show. And let's just start off with like a little introduction of who you are, and maybe kind of discuss like this, as we call like the forbidden self-referral that we sometimes talk about on the show. So, but really, can you share a super brief intro about who you are? Because we'll dive a little bit more into your story in a little bit. But yeah, like, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of to paint my personality and who I am and where I've come from, I was just born, like a normal small town Ohioan, and went to the Marine Corps, and I served in the infantry. So I did 5 years and three tours, and obviously endured lots of trauma. I was never specifically injured by the enemy, but I, of course, sustained, um, you know, emotional and physical and other mental injuries that I didn't realize had such a powerful effect on me as a human and as a Marine. I thought I was pretty tough and could get through anything. And all those things eventually caught up to me. When I left the Marine Corps, you know, I was I had family and I met some lovely friends here in Tampa, but without the buddies that I just spent 4 years every day with, I felt, kind of alone. So I finally just gave in. I tried tons of different stuff and nothing seemed to be helping me the way that I wanted to be helped, and nothing was giving me any relief that I was searching for. And yeah, just so miserable that I said, whatever, put my masculinity aside, put my patriarchal, men card, because I thought, yoga was for sissies back then, and for girls, and just ignorant young uh, Marine mind. And I gave it a shot anyway, and took a veterans class specifically from Annie Okerlund and the Exalted Warrior Foundation. I kind of built up a relationship, trusting her, meeting her every day at a coffee shop, and she was part of my little friend circle that I'd created, and um, I was hooked. It took a few sessions before I really started to like feel and understand what was happening and why I was doing these things, but I asked a lot of questions and I did a lot of research on the internet. And before I knew it, I was, feeling really good, and I was flexible and I could do things that I didn't think that I could do. And it became my life. It became the one thing that worked. And so I just dove completely into it. And now we have Nicky Namaste, the veteran yoga teacher.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's a great story. It's funny asking everybody because everybody has different stories, but it kind of like comes to them where it's like I found it through injury. Some other people found it through injury. Sometimes it's more of less physical, more psychological aspects. But yeah, I mean, we always kind of have this idea of like self referral, like who am I? What am I doing here? Like I am Austin Bitsis, or I am a yoga teacher. I am this. So that's why it's like the forbidden self referral. It's like who are you? But there's a point for it. I mean, I guess that's why we have it. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. So let's dive into to start this conversation. Let's dive into this epic motorcycle adventure that you went on. So last time we spoke, you were preparing for this motorcycle road trip, and you could share kind of like where you went and what you did and kind of what yogic lessons or epiphanies or realizations, because we had like the unique opportunity to speak beforehand about the show, about specific topics that we were going to cover. And then you're like, let me think about it, like through this epic like few weeks of on your motorcycle. And yeah, so like kind of what came across during this trip, and can you share maybe a little bit about like the backstory to this or the details to the trip?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of decided that I was going to do this road trip because I needed to see my sister, and I have my best friend that I served with in the Marine Corps, lives up in Ohio as well. So I felt like I needed to get out, and I was getting a little travel itch from hanging around, too much. I love to travel. I want to do it all the time. I live in a camper, and but I had never taken a motorcycle trip, and I had just gotten this new motorcycle, so I was putting a bunch of money into it and getting it all fixed up, and I was like, I'm going to take a trip on it, but I didn't have enough time with all the preparation to actually plan out the trip. So it was super awesome to just one day I just was like, I'm leaving, and I had everything packed, and I just went, and I would just spend every day. I would drive as far as I wanted to drive, and pick a location to camp out, and I would set up a hammock tent and the campfire, and the motorcycle would be parked underneath the hammock rain fly, and I just spent 5 days getting to Indiana, near Indianapolis, where my sister lives. And so then I hung out for a week up there, and also saw my buddy in Ohio. And we rode around on the motorcycles together because he's got one. And then I spent another um, 6 days coming back, riding through the mountains and doing the same thing. So uh, basically, the way up, I stopped just in Georgia. I ended up spending 2 nights in Georgia because it's a really far state to get through. But then I hopped into Kentucky, and then made it to Indiana there. And then on the way back, uh, the first night, Kentucky, right south of Indiana and Ohio, and then I went into um, it was Tennessee. I spent a night in Tennessee and spent a night in North Carolina and 2 nights in Georgia, and then back to end my travels at the beach in Clearwater Beach here in Florida.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was awesome. Very
Yeah, I
very
saw some pictures on Instagram. I was following you on Instagram and it with your motorcycle under the tent and kind of going through all that and like camping out. So it must have been pretty awesome. And I know like writing and kind of meditation and all that stuff's like a big part of your life. I mean, did you kind of incorporate it throughout? Like, were you alone during this trip or?
Yeah, I mean, the whole time on the motorcycle, the week up, and the week back, I was all by myself. There's a couple campgrounds where there was some people nearby that I, would talk to, but I was primitive camping, and nobody else was primitive camping during the week. So I really had it all by myself, and it got really, really cold on the way back down south. I mean, the one night in Kentucky, it was like 40 some degrees, and I was sleeping in a hammock.
Yeah. I can imagine. I was camping actually the other weekend and it got to like 31. I was me, my girlfriend, and my cat, and my cat wouldn't even get up in the morning. He was so cold. But I know you mentioned like for me, it's a big escape because I spend so much time on my computer behind a screen and like working. And even when I'm not working, I'm thinking about work. And it's like a huge part of like consuming my life, like to the point where when I step outside, it even takes me a day. Like I step outside in nature, do something that's not in front of work. It takes like a day to like unwind, and then I just feel like almost like I just got a massage or meditated like each day, and then it's almost like that afterglow after. And I know you mentioned in an email after, you're like, I got to do this more often, and I'm like, yeah, I mean that's awesome. Like I feel the same way in my end. Like I mean, I don't have a motorcycle or anything, but it's like, what type of kind of things were you thinking about, or like epiphanies in maybe in relation to your yoga practice that you could share with the audience that like they could almost incorporate into their life, or some realizations you came to?
Yeah, I'll start by saying that a lot of hanging out in the woods by myself reminded me of the ancient stories like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, and hearing about them being, lost in the woods by themselves, eating fruits and roots, and, making fires and just listening to all the noise. And it was so quiet and yet so loud at the same time, that the biggest awareness that I had throughout the entire experience was, this is what we try to teach. We try to teach this evenness of mind throughout all of it, throughout all the noise and the pain and the potential suffering, and even at the same time, the joy, like riding 70 miles an hour on a motorcycle with no windshield. I'm happy as I can be. And at the same time, I'm getting pelted by bugs and rain and sand and dirt, and it hurts and it's painful, but I'm still having the best time of my life and just maintaining that evenness, and laying in the hammock. It's cold on some parts of my body, but then other parts of my body it's warm. And we really like look at the polar opposites that exist, and just I was always just finding myself hanging out in the middle of, I don't care if it's what's miserable about it, and I I don't care what's super great about it. I just love being and experiencing both those things at the same time. It was just wonderful to remind myself that I have that ability to be in control of my reaction to both extremes.
Yeah, definitely. I think um, just what you said, where it's like being control of both extremes and like this awareness of the polarities, like the hot, the cold, the wind. Maybe then you're just like sitting by the edge of the road, and it's like intense, calming, and it's like these like polarities. And like the other thing you said, that's kind of um, put a thought in my head, which was like the act of kind of doing nothing. We're so used to like go, 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 action, action, action. But a lot of it is like a lot of creativity and um, things happen in between the action. So it's almost like the space in between each action. And it's like the act of doing nothing. And there's like beauty in the spaces. And we don't always give ourselves the space. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And in the idea that I would just wake up and then I would just start writing. And around lunchtime, when I got hungry, I would stop and get something to eat, and then I'd see how I felt. And, I would do that, like that just awareness check, like how much more energy do I have to like put on the motorcycle? How many more miles can I go today? And, where's a good camping spot that I want to spend for the night? And you know, there's days that, in normal everyday life that we don't necessarily make a plan, but we don't actually do anything either. And it's it was different doing it out in the woods, like waking up in the wilderness and not knowing exactly what to do. But you had to think about, okay, well, where am I going to stop for food, and what's the temperature going to be? Am I going to hit rain? So it was really cool to just wake up and create a plan for that moment, for that day, without any worry about what's happening tomorrow or what happened yesterday. It was, again, that like beautiful present moment experience of just having the awareness of yesterday and tomorrow, but focusing on the individual moment that I was in.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. That's why I always say, like, that's why dogs are so happy. They live in the present moment. It's like a great day to have a great day. Um, so let's jump back into your backstory about this becoming this veteran yogi, because I think it correlates with this whole journey of this trip and some of the epiphanies you had during it. So we can start with your realization of what is important in life. I remember you telling me about that, and walking away from that which is not. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we'd even talked a little bit about contemplating. So
Mhm.
I'm the type of person that wants to overanalyze everything,
Me too.
and it's probably because I also have a little bit of hypervigilance from the military. So I'm constantly bringing in information and awarenesses from things that aren't even close to me, in this reality. So when I think about what's important and what's not important, um, I recognize that, like when I was in the Marine Corps, we built this awesome cornhole set, but then we ran out of firewood. So then we tore the cornhole set and burnt the cornhole because we needed the firewood. So these moments have always, been a part of my life. I grew up very simply, and I've always tried to find ways to carry less stuff. Um, you know, Living in a backpack, you want to bring the least amount of possible things. So I've really just spent a lot of years just deciding what I need and what I don't need. And then it became, okay, so now that I know what I need and what I don't need, now what is it in life that, or where in life do I want to spend my time, and where in life do I not want to spend my time? And I don't always know what necessarily I wanted. It's hard to say, oh, like I'm searching for the meaning of life. That seems a little bit ridiculous to say. So I would say, what do I know is not important? And so rather than trying to find what is important, I just focused on what wasn't serving me and what wasn't making me happy. And then the kind of the opposite appeared, and those did bring me more joyous things. So by asking myself and knowing what I didn't want is kind of how I was able to find what I really did want and what I really needed in life. And most of that all can come down to the conclusion of, for me, was love. Like, that's all we ever need, and that's all anybody ever wants in life is love, really. And it comes in many forms.
Mhm. No, definitely. I was just taking some notes on that, and I could totally um, sympathize with, because I do the exact same thing with this, as I call it, like the paralysis by analysis, and it's just like overwhelming amount of information. That's how I think too, and sometimes it's just like yeah, it becomes overwhelming. But I mean, the second thing was kind of like this idea of like what you need versus what you don't need, and like this idea of less stuff. And that could mean physical, that could mean psychological. I think to me, maybe you were referring to it different. And then the two other things was like, I love what you said about asking what I didn't want, kind of helped you know what you did want. And that's like an interesting, almost like a way to think about it. And it's a call to action for everybody listening right now. It's like, figure out what you maybe don't want in order to help you learn what you want. In terms of like, every time we write down goals, you think about, oh, you write down your goals, okay, break them down into like concrete steps, okay, like these are what I have to do each month, each week, each day. And a lot of times people don't realize, it's like, okay, what do I don't want to happen, and like how can I, like, looking at it at both ends of the spectrum can really help you bring clarity maybe. um
Yes. So it's, again, if we try to find that present moment, if we don't know what we want, but we're constantly being asked what we want. mm, I mean, we could want anything, realistically. So if we eliminated what we don't want, then everything else becomes an opportunity for us to explore to see if we want it or not. And we can go try it out for a minute. And the beautiful part is we have a choice, so we can change our minds and decide that we don't want something after we've tried it. Like, someone gives you a piece of food and you try it, and then you're like, no, I didn't like that. So, but at least you tried it. And sometimes you eat a piece of food and you're like, I love that, and it becomes your new favorite thing.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And I know the last thing you mentioned was about this idea of all we need is love, and this connection of like, is it, or have you found maybe in your practice and your life, is it community? Is it like intimate relationship? Is it just generally like you being the aspect of love and kind of giving it off into the greater world? Like, can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I corresponded. Um, I explained it years ago really, really well. And let's see if I can explain it that well this time. But, you know, all of our focus in this life really comes around time. We always talk about timing this and scheduling this and planning this. But uh, whenever something disastrous happens, all we care about then is how much time we spend with our loved ones. So that's why, it honed in on my reasoning of love is really the only thing we all need, because when we're around those people that we love, time kind of disappears. And when we're around people that we don't love, time kind of drags on, you know, uh, a little fast, and then sometimes it'll go like super slow because we don't like who we're around. So for me, it became like, okay, love and people are connected. So I love to be around people, but I love to be around people that are having fun and being happy. So I looked at love and happiness and people all at the same kind of like group. And I was like, how can I make that more my life? Like, how can I spend more time with people in happy situations and love them? And I kind of turned inward for that answer because there wasn't an outward answer. And you can love everyone and be happy all the time without loving someone's actions or feeding into their negativity. So when someone's unhappy, we do our best to uplift their spirits, and we do that by loving ourselves and being an example. I'm not doing the best job of
No,
explaining this, I don't
I
think.
think you're articulating it very well. I love this idea of like kind of going inward, and that's the idea of the show, which is this heroic self, this inner source, and we can choose to be happy and respond to situations, or we could choose not to. And the reason we have kind of like these philosophical types of conversations because yoga is an internal practice, and on something like a podcast where it's an audio, it's like we're not going to teach you these poses, and also poses are only a fraction of the practice, and it's this internal practice, and we all have this inner source, and exactly how you just articulated it. It's like we have the choice based on our thoughts to respond to different situations, and like we were talking about before on your trip of like the polarities, like on one end of the spectrum, we have the choice to respond totally different than the other end, or we could have this evenness across all. Is that kind of what you're going for?
And yeah, and sometimes we're in control and sometimes we're not. So we have to recognize what we're in control of, and that's our reaction. So I'm constantly choosing to respond in a way that uplifts my surroundings. So then people become my area that I'm in usually becomes happier. And I love all people. So as they're not doing horrible actions, then I can express that love to them. Um, and then we just then time fades away, and it feels like I'm in an endless space of joy uh, when I choose these things. So sometimes though, there's moments where I'm not in control of anything, and it's all hectic, and I just try to breathe and maybe just affect it one little way or another, see if I can't increase the happiness. But sometimes you're just not in control either, and we have to recognize that there's that evenness of mind, that wind and the bugs hitting you in the face at the same time kind of moments.
Yeah, and that's the reality of life. And it's like a tagline we've used not as much as because I always forget, but it's this tagline of like our thoughts control our actions, and our actions are contagious. And it kind of like represents like what you kind of were saying, like, but
Yeah, like we need to create this pattern in our mind of looking at different thoughts to see which one we want to choose or think or believe. And sometimes we experiment and we don't like it, and that's okay. Sometimes it may have a negative uh, effect, but a lot of times if we give it that extra second to create a different thought or belief, then we can choose that one, and that's going to be the one that becomes the happy, loving solution. So we have to essentially allow this superhero within us to choose, and knowing that if we don't like it afterwards, we can always change it. But eventually, this pattern becomes easier, and your brain can then learn how you want it to process information and think, and it becomes easier to make those decisions and choose love and happiness.
hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's great. And at some point, you chose to shift. Like we're having this philosophical talk, and I know there was a point where you probably had this, you're mentioning in your story, the shift towards philosophy and this meditation that helped you. Are there any actionable items or resources um, that you've used or that you would recommend for those who want to dive further into kind of bigger questions like this and kind of decoding um, the mind per se?
Yeah, so sometimes, well, I'll start by explaining that we're all as humans very empathetic and we draw in tons of energy and information from other humans and animals to help us essentially stay alive. And sometimes the problem with that is that's our nature, and we're trying to reduce the reaction and increase the choice of response. So I had to stop watching people and connect with philosophical texts because they were teaching me how to go against that reactionary nature. And if I continued to watch people, I would fall, say, victim to their habits and their reactions. So going to the woods and spending time alone and doing the meditations in the morning uninterrupted and reading and thinking and contemplating about these philosophical verses and scriptures, if you will, they they took me out of the reality in a sense to where I could be the observer of nature and realize that me, the I, the one listening, is uh, unaffected by it, you know, and that's that lovely separation from the physical experience to an observational experience. So we get both of those, and we don't want to spend all of our time completely disconnected and away from the world, but it's good to remind ourselves that we are part of that nature. But you, I, me, the superhero within, um, is unaffected by all of this. It doesn't get hurt. It can't get hurt. It doesn't have necessarily feelings because we know feelings, emotion is a chemical release in the body. So I'm not the body, I'm not this physical form. I am me, and I'm witness of all of this. And I can be a puppeteer, but I don't necessarily have to.
Yeah, wow, that the way you put that, like, it really got me like thinking on so many like things triggering. And I know you mentioned your mission as a teacher of disabled veterans, and you have this vision of civilians learning yoga from veterans who can teach from their unique experiences. So, kind of taking what you've learned in terms of like this epiphany, this shift to philosophy, meditation, internal practice, and your experiences, just such as your motorcycle trip, and now kind of helping you in this greater mission to teach disabled veterans and this bigger vision. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So a pipe dream from years ago was number one, to get as many veteran yoga teachers or get as many veterans into yoga as possible. And then it became, how can we create as many teachers as possible? And and then hopefully, we see a country full of people being taught by veterans who've experienced terrible suffering and terrible violence. And what I've gotten from my experience in it is that I know now that comparison. So anytime I complain about sleeping 40 degrees in a tent in Kentucky, there's been times that I've slept in 20-degree and 10-degree weather, miserable with nothing and no fire and under, you know, fire and you know experienced, such severe violence that now I know what, true peace is. And I think that a lot of veterans um, can feel the same way. You know, it's exhausting to be violent, and it's exhausting to be angry and malicious. And, that realization that, we don't have to expend all of our energy every day. We can be at peace and be content and happy. We don't have to focus on that suffering and that violence. And I think that veterans can share that unique perspective with people that have never willingly put themselves in a dangerous situation.
Mhm.
I think the aspect of safe and is way overused in our culture.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome kind of like vision and mission that you have. And then in terms of like yoga, like what does yoga truly mean to you? Like what is your definition of yoga?
So I think yoga is life, and we are all doing yoga because we're all trying to balance our life between health, family, friends, like this. We're trying to cultivate uh, our identity, ourselves, right? This, yoga means literal translation is unity. But what are we trying to unite? We already all are uh, nature. Why can't we already accept that we're all in perfect balance and harmony right where we are? We don't
Mhm.
necessarily need to go find it. So I think yoga just is about creating that awareness that it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to make choices and experiment and explore and try new things and dive into new ideas and be expansive and adventurous, just like our practice. Like the idea of the practice is to essentially build up resiliency and connect more with the body, but we need to apply that practice all the time, not just on a mat or in a meditation. We need to be trying to connect with our body and be mindful doing the dishes and taking a shower and actively listening to people when they speak, and contemplating what we're going to say before we say it, not just reacting all the time. So yoga is just this, it's a life, it's a balance, and it already exists. We just need to cultivate the awareness that we're doing it.
Mhm. Yeah. No, that's a great definition. And the way you kind of articulated that is, um, yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And if we could confine our learnings and teaching to a structured set of rules, consider like any like lineage or tradition, uh, do we limit our results? Is there a pro? What are the pros? What are the cons with that?
Yeah, we talked about this for a
Mhm.
brief minute last time, and I really liked this part of our conversation because it goes right into the definition that I just gave about yoga. I mean, for some people, they may really, really need the specific discipline of something, and I'm not trying to take away from that. So some people really like the discipline of a specific practice that they carry through, and that's perfectly fine. But at the same time, we we need to accept that there's other practices out there. There's other philosophies that exist, just like there's other religions that exist, and everyone needs to get to where they need to get to when they need to get there. And at whatever moment in time that is, that's perfect for where they are. And if you are practicing and you're feeling like maybe something isn't for you in your current practice, expand out and see what else is there. Because I always tell my students, if you can let go of your expectation, you can experience something that you've never experienced before. But
Mm.
if you try to formulate it in your mind of what it's going to be, like if you formulate in your mind, in your brain, you say, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to be. Cool, but what could you be if you didn't have that expectation, if you didn't set that plan necessarily? Like you could do anything, right?
Mhm.
The idea of, okay, I know what I don't want, so everything else is a beautiful opportunity for me to experience.
Yeah. Wow. The way you just put that, it's like you would think that like focusing on what you don't want is almost like a pessimistic type of view of life. But the way you just put it, it's actually like a extremely optimistic view. It's like, okay, I don't want this, throw it aside. It's like now the world is yours, like to so many different possibilities. And that's super motivating and optimistic and positive. So yeah, everyone listening, like just scroll back like 30 seconds and listen to that again. And I like the other thing you said for it's for where they are now and maybe what they need now. And I think sometimes the lineages we get very caught up into like this structure. And I think it's great for somebody starting out and somebody that needs the discipline to figure out, okay, these are the aspects. Let me learn Ashtanga yoga, or let me learn this type of Hatha yoga, and or whatever their practice is. Like, let me learn something. Let me kind of perfect that style, and then let me stay open-minded. Like you said, there's different philosophies out there, there's different lineages out there's different disciplines out there, and let me incorporate to find my own practice. So that's kind of like the way I think about it, maybe. And it's like I always say there's these other tools. So on here it's like it's a yoga podcast, because I think that it's like that yoga community is very open-minded to this, and to this audience of people that listening right now, including like yourself who's listening right now. It's this idea that like there's other things besides like traditional yoga practice that can get us to achieve the same results. And it's sometimes it's animal assisted therapy. We've had some people just say it's like it's crochet for me. That's like my meditation. It's running. Running used to be my meditation. What other ones? For other people it might be like energy work, tarot cards, astrology. I mean, the breath work, weightlifting. It, like the list is endless. Surfing, like just going for a walk. So that's why we don't really limit it on this show, because there's so many different disciplines. It might be what you need now, or you incorporate different styles, and just having this open mind to what people use and like what you're using, like as living your life as a secret yogi and embodying your secret yogi. Um, before I go on, I feel like you have something to say right now. So,
Well, I
yeah.
just want people to know that they should just welcome themselves with wherever they are here now in this moment. Like it's okay. I'm not perfect, even though I have these cool thoughts. Like this isn't, it's not always easy to put it to practice. And I just set myself a daily goal that I try to always have a positive impact on the world. And I'll never necessarily know if I do or not, but I can usually be pretty sure that I don't have a negative impact on the world. So uh, at the same time, my therapist tells me I need to say no more. So that might increase some negativity happening in the world. But, it's not, with enough practice, like anything's possible. And we can reduce those imperfect reactions that manifest anxiety, fear, and guilt and shame. And we can reprogram our mind to think a specific way.
Mhm.
And your practice can go deeper and it can go wider and it can go, uh, you know, more in or more out. It's all part of it. Yoga is this life awareness that I think eventually we all cultivate.
Mhm. Yeah, and the idea of the show is like, as a yoga teacher myself, it's like yoga is ever evolving. It's like this free form, And as we're gaining different experiences and we're seeing the students or the people around us or in our own practice, and that's kind of what yoga, at least from like when I was reading the traditional text through my trainings, it's like that's kind of where it was going, where it's just like the lineage is like that's the style that they found works. And it's like where I'm kind of finding that there's so many different aspects because I'm coming from a different background. I'm coming from a very high collegiate running background, so like a distance running background. I'm coming from a background as an entrepreneur and someone into like the digital side of things. So it's like I'm taking these different things and I'm finding, hey, there's other people out there that you need to relate to, and sometimes it's totally different things like we were just mentioning. There's so many animal assisted therapy. It's like I find that works for me and I find that works for a lot of other people. So that's why we talk about it on the show, because I feel like it would resonate with people. And I know like, so one tool that you've mentioned when we were last speaking is writing as this form of mental clarity. Can you talk a little bit more about this as like one of your tools besides yoga, besides meditation, besides writing and going out in nature on your kind of epic motorcycle adventures?
Yeah, so I mean, we already talked about how much information I am taking in constantly. And when I talked earlier about analyzing those thoughts, like and deciding which one I actually want to think, feel, or believe, sometimes there's so much going on that I need to put it out on paper so I can, you know, not forget it. Um, because maybe I like a specific something about it, but it's not the perfect thought that I want to think or feel or believe in the moment. So I use writing as a way to get it all out. And then as I am writing it all out, the thought slowly starts to become more specific and it becomes more um, open at the same time and accepting as I write all of this out. I'm able to contemplate it in a different way.
Mhm. Yeah. I think for myself as well in my own practice, I love to write, and it's something that's kind of definitely grown on me. Like just a couple months ago, I'm like, I just need to start like taking all these jumbled thoughts in my head, like as these a lot of people say in yoga, it's like this monkey mind. And then when you go to actually write your your thoughts down, it's like, wow, they're really not clear, they're not concise, and they're um and then when you go to write them down, it's like you really have to think about them and bring clarity to them and bring awareness to the thoughts. And it's like this mindfulness practice, which I think everyone should incorporate. And a lot of times, like, I mean, we we always have our phones and stuff, but we don't write a lot. And just like the act of like handwriting something with, because there's no distractions a lot of times when you're handwriting, instead of taking notes on your phone, you get a notification popping up every 2 seconds. And it's like, um, so it's like this idea of taking this monkey mind and having it clear, concise thoughts, and just carrying around a notebook has really kind of helped me like clarify some of the things and that would normally maybe stress me out because I just couldn't think. It's like, yeah, you just needed to write it out, and I was like, oh wow, that's what I was trying to think the whole time. So it brings peace in the world. um
Absolutely.
yeah.
And and what's good about writing is that all that stuff that like especially if you're having an emotion, right? This is most important if you're having an emotion. Try writing it out first before, you know, reacting to it. You know, like as it builds up, you're so mad at something, just write out why you're mad. And I bet you'll find that by the time you're done writing, you're not going to be that mad at the situation, and you're going to have a little bit more clarity as to why, what, and how is happening, and why you're having that emotion to begin with. So it's a great way to contemplate, even to and build up your emotional intelligence, that resiliency to react and choose that love and happiness.
Hmm. Yeah, and a call to action as we start to kind of bring this episode to a close for everybody listening right now is something that works for me, and then we could discuss maybe some call to actions that you have, Nikki, on your side. But is to write meditations. Like writing meditations is almost like a love letter to somebody, and you don't have to share with anybody. Like I choose to share some of them on this show. However, it's this idea of like, it's almost meditative for me. And then even the act of sharing it is actually almost like this expression to the world. And it really takes me time and this thought process to kind of share it. And yeah, I mean, if it's not writing a meditation, so that's kind of my call to action, maybe just try writing a letter. So just start with that, writing a letter to someone you care about, and you don't even have to share it with them. I mean, I'm sure they'd love to hear it if it was nice, but yeah. So yeah, I love this idea of emotional intelligence, and then kind of everything we've discussed today, kind of like philosophy, meditation, and really encompassing all of yoga. Are there any particular action items or call to actions that you have for the audience?
I suppose if I mean, a lot of you doing this listening are pretty open and accepting individuals already, but maybe try to find one thing that's like a super core value that you have and find its opposite. and and I know that may be hard, and you may be like, whoa, like, these are my core values, these are my principles, like this is what I live by. But maybe find one of those and see if you can't um, lessen the reins a little bit on it. Not for yourself, but maybe for the other people that you're uh, viewing that are doing something against your core value, and try to love them, even if you don't love that act that you feel very strongly about. And just
Yeah.
start.
No, no, thank you for that. And my I have two questions next. So to kind of end this off, this great conversation is like, what's next for you, and kind of where can people follow you? And the second thing is, um, for everybody listening right now. So each episode interview is matched with an interactive episode. And Nikki was kind enough to share an interactive guided episode, which definitely check out after this if you haven't already. So, where can people find you? And can you tell us a little bit about that interactive episode?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Facebook, but I don't really actually have anything on Facebook. Most of my interactions come from Instagram, which you can find me at Nicky.Namaste, and it's Nicky. And that's pretty much where I interact with a lot of my friends and fellow yoga teachers and veterans all around the country. So if you follow me there, you can also get a chance to meet some really cool people that I'm friends with. And if you don't have social media, then feel free to check me out at veteranyogi.com. And that's where you can send me a contact us or anything there.
You got some good articles out there. So definitely check it out if you like some of the conversation we had today. So,
Yeah.
and then this interactive episode, can you just tell us like a quick thing about this for everyone that wants to kind of check it out next?
Yeah, so it's a deep body sense. I like to feel as much as I love to contemplate and be the observer. I like to be here, to be connected, to experience the sensation that my body has and is sensing. So I actually listened to my own meditation today, and I thought it was great. So I
Cool.
loved where I took it, and you know, it's just really a refreshing experience to just reconnect with the body in a relaxed and peaceful way without any need to do or change anything. So
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. And if you're not fired up about something, how's anybody else going to be? So I always say that it's like first it starts with you. So yeah, no, everyone definitely check that out. It's the episode preceding this. And yeah, no, Nikki, I really appreciate it. I enjoyed this conversation a lot, and it really got me to think. And I've kind of been steering the conversation a little bit more that way, which is like philosophical, and you kind of are the perfect person to speak to about that. So I appreciated that. And for everybody, there'll be links to everything we discussed in the show notes below, some details you could check out. It's Nicholas Caress, saying that right?
Karis.
Karis, the Veteran Yogi, and or Nicky Namaste. And I really hope that everyone listening right now enjoyed this episode and it helped you learn at least one new thing or think about something in a different positive way in order to kind of unlock your own superpowers through yoga and these related tools, helping us decode the mind. If you liked it, make sure to share it with at least one person that needs it most and consider leaving a written review and rating on Apple Podcasts. Also, make sure to check out www.secretyogisociety.com to sign up for our weekly newsletter where you could stay up to date on new and future episode releases, anything else we're working on, such as a book, maybe a future documentary, but definitely some free yoga classes in the future. As soon as I pull myself away from this mic and get myself in front of the camera, it's just something I haven't. I kind of got to break the ice with that a little bit and break my comfort zone. But I'm really grateful to have you on the show. Everyone, make sure to check out the following episode, the meditation. Yeah, no, it's been a real pleasure. I mean, when's your next road trip? You're going to sneak one in before the winter?
I don't know about sneaking in a whole road trip, but I'm definitely going to just take a weekend and go camping here again next. There's a lot of places to camp in Florida, so I'm gonna do some exploring for a little bit here in the winter.
Cool, awesome, and thanks for meeting me.
You too. Talk to you
Cool.
later. Awesome.